one of the ways that people benefit from Arccos is getting a realistic set of expectations in terms of how far they hit the ball, not just off the tee, but into greens.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Whole Story Podcast. Robbie here. This is new for us. We are taking a look back at some of our more popular episodes to where we've talked to great people doing great things in the game. And we're doing this on Mondays where we get to highlight kind of a theme throughout the month. We'll have some new episodes, some ones like this where we're going to take a look back at previously recorded stuff. But today, as we start out in this month, we've been doing things on game improvement, and Arccos is one of those great brands that we got to chat with. Michael Hutchinson, or Hutch, as you might know, we interviewed him a couple years ago back in 2024. It was a great episode where we learned about Arccos and just the game-changing ability that the data that you can get by using their technology can help you get better at golf. They're doing great things. You talked about the sensors at the time. They've added the Link Pro. And recently they've added this thing, their new smart rangefinder. So got one of these. We'll be putting this in play, but it will give the data that you've been getting through the app, on your phone, through the Link Pro, through the sensors, and it will put it right in the palm of your hands. It allows for that pin seeking ability to where you can figure out exactly where the pin is. It uses smart technology, so the slope, the wind, all that stuff is figured in. So highly recommend you guys check out the new smart rangefinder from Arccos. But today's episode is, again, a look back at our conversation, some highlights from that. Think y'all are going to enjoy it. As always, we want to give thanks to our friends at Summit Golf Brands. Use BestBall20 at any of their websites. Speed's Ratty, zero restriction, fairway and green, and you can get 20% off your order. So now let's take a look back at our interview with Michael Hutchinson talking about Arccos Golf.
January of 24, jumped into the boat with the team at Arccos. So tell us about that move. How'd you get paired up with these guys?
Yeah, at the time I'd been thinking about a career in golf. I had, like I said, there's pretty big obsession with the game, improving on my own. I had been an Arccos user since I started to get back into it, and kind of religiously tracked my stats and used that to help inform, what to work on within my game. And I had floated the idea out to some people within the golf community about, what do you think about going into this as a career? Are there any, positions that would be a good fit for somebody with my background? Got, enough interest from Lou Stagner to where when he was talking with the head of engineering at Arccos, the idea of this position came up, somebody to kind of lead the data science team here. And at the time I was at Amazon, working with their game studios, division. And, it was a very cool position, all of that. But, I really wanted to be working on something that was like within my passion area and that I, would be excited about going to work on every day and, kind of making discoveries in there. So I talked with my wife about it. And she was like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, where where I see you the most alive is when, you're working on this kind of stuff. And, I flew out to Minnesota to meet with our head of engineering. I went on a trip to Rochester, New York as well, played some golf with our head of product. And, not only did I really like the Arccos product itself, but it turns out I really liked the people as well. And it just kind of became an easy decision for me. And after a few months of consulting, I decided to make the switch to full time. And yeah, been here coming up on a year now. And absolutely love it. I mean, there's so many cool things that we've got coming, down the road. And yeah, great team. and lots of fun opportunities, especially in the data field.
Well, tell us more about Arccos. Let's start from, you just mentioned you've been using it personally for 3 or 4 years, and then we'll get to the heavy data analytics and what comes next. But talk about, you jump back in, you have the best 5 holes on a guy's golf trip, it sounds like, in most places. And then at that point, you're like, I'm taking this seriously, and analytics is your game and your world. So you find Arccos. Why Arccos? Why not something else? And then how did that help you become a scratch golfer over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I wish that I knew the first time that I was introduced to Arccos. I just remember seeing this really cool teaser video that was about this really advanced tracking of your game, and I don't think I knew anything about strokes gained at that point, other than that it was this metric that seemed to be gaining prominence in golf. So I asked for Arccos as a present. I think my mom ended up getting it for me. And I hadn't really considered any others just because I didn't know any others really existed out there. They were the only ones that seemed to do this kind of like seamless tracking. And it looked like it made it really easy to understand your game. And at the same time, I started doing research on strokes gained, read like Mark Brody's book, Every Shot Counts. And that really kind of cemented a lot of those ideas in my head about, okay, how can we quantify, the areas where we need the most improvement in our game. I think when I was in high school, I always tracked stats. I tracked fairways in regulation. I tracked putts per round, all of that kind of stuff. And then as I got more into the data side, it was always like, well, that doesn't really correlate with score. And if you got, 36 putts per round, but you've hit 18 greens, is that good or is that bad? Or, all of those kind of things that get into the nuance of what is a good drive? What does a good approach game look like? All of that started to be answered for me. And I was able to very clearly see what are the parts of my game where I had the most room for improvement. So it kind of started with ball striking. Approach play was probably where I was, other than putting, was where I struggled the most. And putting was largely just not playing a lot. So I started to, I went with my Arccos stats to my instructor that I started with, who was Adam Young, showed him, what I was doing. He was quickly able to diagnose a low point problem in my swing. I had a lot of like lateral movement, and that was leading to inconsistent ball turf contact. So yeah, worked with him, and was able to, I had I think like a winter at that point of just being able to hit balls in my backyard into a net, not really worrying about where it was going, but focused on the movements, and started to make progress pretty quickly in those, especially that area of my game. And then I used Arccos throughout it to just kind of keep track of where I was. Like I said, putting was a problem. I was consistently losing like 3 to 4 strokes per round to a scratch golfer on the green, and kind of saw that the distances that I needed to improve there. And so yeah, it's just been kind of this a monitor for my game to see like, all right, how are we doing here? I try not to read too much into any single round because there can be a lot of noise. So I'll generally look at like a 5 or 10 round moving average to see, what are the trends? What do we need to get ahead of? Where's the low hanging fruit? And so, yeah, like I said, I still feel like I'm 3 or 4 strokes away from, what I can potentially get to. But it's really helped kind of clean up a lot of the messier areas of my game and focus my limited practice time that I have on the, where I'm going to get the most bang for the buck.
Yeah, you talked about tracking the stats and just looking at the Arccos site. And by the way, I'm a Arccos guy. I got
Awesome.
I got it a few months back. I'm still trying to figure out what it means. And thank you for saying that. Don't just look at one round, but look at multiple. Because you look at one round and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst golfer ever. But the Arccos site, I mean, y'all have tracked 20 million rounds 1 billion shots plus, and there's been a 5.71 strokes improvement by people that are using Arccos. So I guess why should, just separating Arccos, but why should people look at data as a way to improve their golf game?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, to me, it's about efficiency, right? Like, if you're, you have a career, have a family, um, you're probably not going to have a ton of time to just go out on the course and kind of figure it out. So, you know, I think most people who are truly trying to get better in their game, are looking for some direction. Where can I improve? And that may start with a high level. I need to be better off the tee. I need to improve my iron play, my short putts, whatever that is. And I think a lot of people probably come in with a thinking that they have an intuitive understanding of where that is. But what I've observed is in myself and in others, we actually have really poor memories when it comes to golf. We tend to fixate on a few bad things. Like if you miss a, 2-foot putt on 18 to shoot 79 or whatever it is, right? That's probably going to stick with you afterwards. And you're going to think, oh man, it's my putting. It stopped me from, shooting in the 70s, which was my goal. And then you may spend, 2 weeks in your living room just hitting putt after putt to, whatever little setup that you've got. The reality is you may have putted great that entire round. You may have made a lot of, 8, 10 footers or, things like that. But it was the one that kind of, salient emotion has that like emotional quality to it that is going to kind of stick out in your mind. The same thing happens with drives and all of that. So, I'd say the first reason why somebody should track their game is like, you kind of need it in order to be an objective observer of your game. And the second reason is just like, how are you then gonna spend the time trying to improve, assuming that you're serious about like, I would like to get better and I would like to improve by 3-5 strokes over this year. What's your plan for doing that? Is it I'm going to be able to practice 2-3 hours a week? Okay, where do you put that time? I think a lot of people kind of get into the habit of just mindlessly banging balls on the range and hoping that translates into better improvement on the course. And I don't really see that in the data or the people that I know who play golf. The people that tend to succeed are the ones who are focused on a plan and here's how I'm going to get there. And, kind of have the support of not only the statistics, but people around that can help interpret it and say, okay, going to work on your approach game. We're going to work on shots from 100 to 150 yards, and we're going to focus on, your left-right dispersion by looking at these elements of the golf swing or something like that. Very like specific, measurable type of goals that you can set up. And I think for the golfers that I've seen who have done really well, that's been the most common path to success.
You said say 3 to 5 strokes, and in my head I heard 35 strokes. So I guess if you need to figure out how to save 35 strokes, well, those may or may not be real numbers in life.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Does this make sense? Right? At what point does this make sense? Like, is this a thing for all abilities? Let's pretend there's a person who shoots anywhere between 90 and 115. Is that someone that?
And his name is Jonathan that lives in Augusta?
It might be Jonathan that lives in Augusta. Is that a reasonable expectation that I'm suddenly going to find the hole where those extra 20 shots go?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think in some cases, golfers who have the most ground to improve are going to benefit the most from a product like Arccos. If you're shooting around scratch or better, it's probably, you're looking for marginal strokes that you can pick up here or there throughout your round. And, they can be difficult to find. But if you're shooting, 90 to 105, 110, like, I think you're going to see a boatload of strokes that show up in, the different categories. And then it's trying to figure out, okay, what are those? Is it that I slice it off the tee, and that's, the penalties, leading to penalties, and maybe I need to be a little bit more conservative in picking my targets or club selection off the tee, or maybe I just need to get better at ball striking. Like you can't strategize your way to being a good player on that alone, but that can really guide kind of what you work on and, what you decide to spend your time focusing on. So yeah, I do think like for higher handicap golfers and Arccos, we kind of have a reputation as like, everybody thinks that, Arccos players are really good. And I think like compared to the average, golfer out there, maybe that's true. Maybe the Arccos golfer is better, but, most of our golfers are between 10 and 20 handicaps. Yeah, I think like whatever your skill level, tracking your game, tracking your strokes gained, and then spending the time to like figure out what all that means and where you're losing strokes, is definitely worth the effort. And I think especially for, somebody within 18 handicap or plus range, it's probably going to come down to a lot of the same things. When we do kind of a cluster analysis on our data, we see similar patterns in terms of, trouble with ball striking in general, a lot of like laying the sod over the ball or thinning it over the green on approach shots, and a lot of penalties off the tee, penalties and lost balls. So, maybe it's not going to be super shocking that those are the areas, but it allows you to get a lot more focused on, all right, here's what I'd like to work on.
So it does work in the woods then. That's perfect. As long as it works in the trees.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. You'll be
super important.
And the sensors on the club, sensors on the clubs, not the balls, Jonathan. So don't throw your clubs in the water.
All right, there we go.
Yep. So the strokes gain thing is just fascinating. How it could be certain sides of the fairway, certain distances. You hear people in a scramble. You talked about playing scrambles earlier, and we play in a number of them, but. People that say, "Oh, well, let's play the one that's here because I can hit a full shot," as a one that's like 30 yards closer.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the stats that you put out there, that Lou puts out there, that says, "Listen, no. Like here's your average score from the certain distances, and you always take the farther one, right? Or the one closest to the hole."
Yeah, look, somebody can always point to edge cases and things like that. And there are a small subset of players that are better with like a full wedge than they are from, 50 to 60 yards. I would say that that's likely a deficiency in their game from 50 to 60 yards. So if you are one of those people, it probably means that you've got some room there. But yeah, we could cherry pick examples where you're saying, this angle matters into this, or it's better to be able to spin a ball from this far. But when you start looking at the numbers in aggregate, it's very clear. Advance the ball as far as possible, while doing your best to stay clear of hazards and penalty situations. And I know there's a big debate there in terms of, should am I better to lay up with a 5-iron or a 7-iron on a par 5 and then have that 100 yards in versus, getting it down there with a 3 hybrid or something like that to leave myself 20 or 30 yards in. I think, like I said, context is obviously important. What trouble are you bringing into play in each of those shots? Would probably be the place that I would start. But very few people are actually going to hit that 100-yard shot closer on average than that 40, 50, 60-yard shot. And the other thing I would say about it is, like, if you golfers, I don't care how good you are, you're probably not going to lay up to your precise number, right? If it was that easy, then, you'd have no problem with the rest of your game. But like, if you think you're going to leave yourself a 104-yard shot in, no, you're probably going to have somewhere between 90 and 110 yards in. So you have to get, good at those kind of partial shots, or taking a little bit off or putting on a little bit more. But yeah, as a general rule to golf, it sounds very simple, but advance the ball as far as possible while staying out of trouble as much as possible.
So Jonathan needs to learn how to hit his driver then.
I just heard
Is that
hitting my 6-iron.
Is that your game?
No, listen.
From Jonathan, what's the?
There's so many problems in my game. However, he just said hit it as far as possible without getting out of bounds. And my 6-iron, and the only reason I use a 6-iron is because my 5-iron broke. But my 6-iron goes about the same distance as my driver, because my driver is so inconsistent, and it goes straighter than my driver. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's very
go ahead.
difficult to get 2 shots back if you're pumping it OB. Right. So I would say, like, maybe as a, without having seen your game or anything, what I would suggest is, like, yeah, maybe there are examples where hitting that 6-iron or whatever off the tee is good, but on the side, you should be working on that driver until it starts feeling comfortable, and you have where you can put it.
I just keep bringing on guest after guest that are going to try to get Jonathan to hit a driver. That's what we're doing here.
I used to hit a driver when I was young and nimble, and now I'm not. So,
maybe you just need a new driver, Jonathan. I think that is normally how it works. You just got to go spend the money.
I am tempted by a new driver every time I'm somewhere at a golf store. And then I go, there's no way in the world I'm investing that kind of money in this crappy golf game. Like, it's just not. There's no return on investment. There's no return on investment on a $600 driver that's going to change anything about my golf game. There's, as you said, Arccos would potentially show me the other holes that are in my game as well. There's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, pick your battles. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, you mentioned, golfers don't really know how far to lay up, or, the accuracy of their layup is probably not going to happen. But what are some other misconceptions that you guys are seeing in the data about golfers and their game and what they think their game is?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. One of the classic examples is angles into holes. People will, especially on a lot of the courses that have these, reputations that are built up over years with lots of kind of local knowledge, that you have to, put it up the left side here in order to leave a shot into this pin. And like, there's some truth to angles being important, but generally they're not as important as keeping the ball in play. And what course architects like to do is to force you into those trade-offs where you're trying to decide, do I take a more aggressive line, which maybe sets up a better shot, or do I or an easier shot, or do I take a more conservative approach, which may leave me with, say, a harder shot into the green or something like that. And as we kind of look through the data, it's just very clear that the number one priority, is keep the ball safe in play and hit it as far as you can. And, a lot of the strategy really boils down to that. I said recently, like, fit your big fat shot pattern in the big fat area of the big fat safe area of the hole. And that'll get you kind of 90% of the way on a lot of course strategy. So anytime you're tempted to kind of try to, snuggle a driver up the left-hand side when you got OB left, and it's probably not a good play. Take the right side of the fairway, or even, in some cases, for amateur golf, rough isn't super punitive. So take on the kind of an approach, or, a shot off the tee or a target that's going to leave you in a position where you've got, say, 60 to 70 yards left to right to play with, and figure it out from there. So that's, one of the areas that we see, I think a lot of people talk about is, angles into holes. And it's one of Lou's things that he talks about a lot. I think,
do you have a lot of people that find they might not be hitting it as far as they thought they did?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We
Isn't that
actually
everyone?
well, especially on Twitter
Just
or
everybody.
X. No, we did an analysis, and I'm trying to remember the actual numbers on this, but we looked when people onboard to Arccos, we ask how far they think they hit their driver, or what like an average drive is for them. And the cool thing is, like, fast forward 20 rounds or so, you can actually compare that back to what they thought they did. And I think we saw in about 77% of cases that people estimated that they hit the ball farther than they actually do. So, I would say one of the ways that people benefit from Arccos is getting a realistic set of expectations in terms of how far they hit the ball, not just off the tee, but into greens. We have smart distances, which are normalized distances that take into account, wind, trajectory, or the wind, the elevation, few other features go into it, and kind of normalize, like, this ball may have gone 170 yards, but, in terms of all of those other factors, it was a 150-yard shot. And then we create these smart distances that actually give you the range of, here's where, here's how far you can actually expect in this situation to be able to hit your 7-iron, your 8-iron, or something like that. And I think that for a lot of golfers, that having those numbers makes a huge difference, especially when they're looking at a shot and they've got to clear a bunker or something like that, kind of forcing them to take a little bit more club. One of the things we see pretty much across the board is people end up leaving the ball short a lot more than actually getting the ball to the hole or beyond the hole. And that goes for all handicap groups, but is especially prevalent among higher handicap golfers. So realistic expectations for how far you hit it, I think is an important thing that can definitely help save a few strokes as you're kind of looking over your full game.
So you just gave a lot of information about what can be found, but let's talk about the nuts and bolts. Like, whenever I have an arc sensor in an app, do I get my own personal satellite that now tracks me, or am I inputting information and still like walking off yardage after every shot? Because the goal at some point is to also enjoy playing golf. And so, like, how does Arccos fit into just a regular round of helping you become a better golfer while at the same time having a good time?
Yeah, the idea is to make it as seamless as possible. I don't touch Arccos for the most part during a round. I'll spend about 5 minutes after the round editing shots, and that's mostly just putting putts in the right places or pins. Those are the trickiest areas from a shot detection and capture standpoint. So I budget about 5 minutes after the round to do that because, like I don't like to be interrupted mid-round or have to, do anything like that. The idea of it is you should be able, if you have a decent memory or you write down your score on the hole and how many putts you had, you should be able to update it, with minimal intervention. And I have tried a few different kind of strokes gain tracking apps, especially before joining Arccos. And what I found was there's just a lot of work in some of them, having to like input the yardage and the terrain and all of that kind of stuff to go through it, that it, is kind of prohibitively, you know, probably more work than I was willing to invest at that time. And with Arccos, what's nice is that, I tell people it does like 90% of the bulk of the heavy lifting. It'll take care of, all of the distance calculations, all of the analysis on the strokes gain side. It'll, understand where you're at on the course and what terrain you are in, based on the course mapping, and, then what club you hit based on the sensor that detected it. So yeah, I think like in terms of the amount of work that you have to put in to get clean, really good, highly actionable data is very minimal compared to a lot of what the alternatives are out there. And I would say, without giving away any, I would just say without giving away any kind of trade secrets, there's a lot of stuff coming up this next year that's going to make that experience even more seamless and kind of feel a little bit magic.
Does it include, because I said I've never used it, does it include ball speed, trajectory, things like that? Or is it just simply measuring, I pulled out my 9-iron, I hit a ball, and then it knows that I hit my 9-iron 100 and however many yards I hit it?
Yeah, we could back into estimate of club speed or ball speed based on, those kind of normalized distance measures. But we're just looking at where you were on the golf course when we detected a shot, and then doing all the calculations based on that. So you ended up over here. We, calculate the distance between those two things. We calculate the strokes gained, and yeah, it kind of all does all of that in the background. So you shouldn't have to manage it while you're playing.
Tracks waggles.
Does not track waggles currently, but
right.
We do actually get a count or an estimate of how long you're over the ball, or you're in the area where you're hitting a shot. So there may be some interesting analysis worth doing there. But yeah, not currently.
Jonathan, it does track that 9-iron and then wedge.
Yeah, right.
Finally put it. Yeah.
Right. You hit your wedge 3 times, 3 different distances. This isn't good.
Yep. And it'll draw a nice little map of back and forth on the green. So yeah.
Oh, you should see when we're looking at some of the round replays, going, what happened here? Yeah, it can be pretty funny.
You're like, hey, look, Robbie's playing again. Let's check this out. Well, pro golfers are paying a lot of attention to their stats. Matt Fitzpatrick's one of an Arccos players. I know the Molinari brother helped out with the European Ryder Cup team. He's an ambassador for Arccos as well. But yeah, so what other pros are coming to you guys saying, teach me, help me get better?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you bring that up. Just before this, I got a message from somebody that works with the Champions Tour player, and mentioned that player hadn't tracked their stats this year, and wanted to see what Arccos can do to help on that. And like I said, I can't give away like too many trade secrets, but within the next year, there's going to be options for professional golfers to be able to track their stats. Now on the PGA Tour, all of that is tracked through ShotLink, and so the work that Eduardo does and the Arccos Pro Insights level of analysis is taking that data, adding in other data along with it, certain benchmarks, things like that. And, it's a really kind of personalized, very impressive product that he's delivering to the players that makes use of the ShotLink data and other data that's collected. So he has a whole stable of golfers that he works with and that are, part of that kind of Arccos Pro Insights group that's getting those really very, very detailed insights into their game that, they're hoping will help them save a half a stroke around or something like that, they're all so good that trying to find places to improve for them is a real challenge. Yeah, I would say, that's obviously going on, but I think like on Corn Ferry Tour or on the Champions Tour, they don't have a stats solution. A lot of them track it manually and will input into calculators on their computer and, things like that. Matt Fitzpatrick is obviously like the most extreme example. The detail on the stuff that he's tracking is wild. Even as somebody who's obsessed with data like myself, like I look at that and I'm, wow, man, this is intense. But yeah, I think like, you're gonna see more and more Corn Ferry Tour players, Champions Tour players, that are using different Arccos products, both from a strokes gain tracking or game tracking, but also a strategic level.
Very nice. Well, Jonathan and I recently went out and played from 150 yards in on every hole, and keeping the holes the exact same pars they were, and tracking the data there. We need to work on those shots. So, yeah,
what were the results? I'm curious.
So I shot 4 over on the front, and I shot par on the back.
Yeah, I shot even par. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Well, what it showed was
150 yards at a par 5 should not take 6 to 7 strokes, or 5
sure.
in theory.
Well, my take on that is that's where I need to work on, right? Like work on the 150 yard in, because I wasn't hitting every green, and getting up and down wasn't always happening. So, yeah, so that just showed me that's where I'm losing a ton of strokes.
Personally, it showed me we should start from 100 yards and see if we could that. And then maybe 50 and so on until finally we're breaking par.
Yeah, it's a good test. I mean, it's I like those ideas. A lot of people will play from like the shortest set of tees as a way to help get them to break through scoring barriers. Because mentally, if you're having kind of a career round, that can get in your head. And so I know a lot of people that will get used to, these scores that they wish they could shoot on a regular basis, so that they're more comfortable. Their kind of internal barometer adjusts to, okay, I've been here before, even if it was under different conditions. But yeah, it's interesting. I'd definitely be curious to look at some of your data that comes up through there, because might be able to help you out.
We'll keep you posted.
Cool.
Well, we always ask everybody, and you being a pretty good golfer here, we ask everybody to share the story of their most memorable golf shot.
Oh gosh. All right. So I'm gonna give one here that may not be the best shot I've ever hit, but just stands out in my mind as like a perfect golf shot at a perfect time. This was about a month ago. I was playing in the club championship at my home course, and it was in the final match for the club championship. And I started out really strong, and started to leak oil it was a 36 hole match, and I had him down 6, and then he got back to within 2. And my mind, I'm going through God, this is going to be embarrassing if I blow this kind of a lead. All of the thoughts that you'd rather not have come up at a moment like that. So we're on the 13th hole, which is a par 5. It's got 3 centerline trees, which it's a very interesting design. When I've shared this hole on Twitter, people seem to have very strong opinions about it. But par five, sort of dogleg right, center line trees, and I hit a good drive down the left side of the fairway. And it's two up at that point. And I had kind of a decision to make. Do I just hit like a, kind of little 54 iron up there, or do I go for the green and see if we can get the momentum back on my side? And I decided to take my mini driver off the deck, and I had to hit it low, you know, beyond the first set of trees, and then there's a kind of a side hill lie, a fade lie. So had to hit it low through that first set, and then fade it up over that second set of trees. And obviously there's the high likelihood of disaster in that situation, especially with where my nerves were at the time. And I just hit this shot that, man, it was exactly how I pictured it in my head. It was one of those ones where it just comes off the club perfect, and it's um, exactly how you drew it up. And I hit that one, and immediately I just thought, okay, I'm going to win this. It didn't really matter what else happened from that point, but I was like, if I can hit a shot like that at a moment like this, I've got what it takes to take home the trophy, and ended up winning that 2-1 to win the club championship. So that was a pretty cool day, a pretty cool moment. And yeah, that shot is one that just stands out in my mind as telling me what I'm capable of with my game.
And your Arccos app the whole time was yelling, "No, don't do it. Don't do it."
Well, honestly, on that hole, I've tracked it in Arccos a lot. Because the par fives are normally where I have some strategic decisions to make. And yeah, I mean, the layups there is no piece of cake. So it's just, you're kind of forced into a situation where you got to hit a good shot one way or the other. And I'd rather kind of take the chances on one where, the payoff is a little bit bigger.
If you're looking for a good strategy on par fives, 3 7-irons will get you on the green in 3 shots.
I haven't seen that one show up in the data yet as the best strategy, but maybe I'll have to take a look at some examples. I'm sure we can find them there where people are,
Yes, I mean, like,
dividing
again,
the
I
whole
hit my
distance.
bad driver. When I hit my driver 110 yards, my first thought is, well, at some point on this hole, I was going to have to hit a 100-yard shot.
Exactly.
So this
You
is
just
where it happens.
flip in the order. All right. Well, maybe you got some strategy stuff to teach me, Jonathan.
No, next time I'm going to think, let me pull out my mini driver. I'm going to go under this tree, and then it's going to go up.
Under
and
this
it's
tree,
going to turn to the right. Yeah. That's Robbie's like, you should probably try that shot next time.
Absolutely.
Well,
right,
make sure to
always
record
do a
it
fun
and
thing.
send it to me.
Oh, we recorded if I pulled a driver off the deck. All right, we always like to do a thing we call the quick nine. Just a little back and forth here. So first question is, what's the favorite course that you've played?
Hold on, let me just make sure I've got the name right. It's in Rancho San Lucas in Cabo San Lucas. The Greg Norman course, right on the water. Just absolutely amazing time.
Very nice. What course is at the top of your bucket list?
I mean, is it weak to say Augusta?
No.
Heck. Okay, I'm going with like, if there's any course that I could get on that, I hope to one day be able to play, it's Augusta. I got to go there this last year for the first time to enjoy the tournament, and yeah, I'd pay a lot of money for that course.
Well, if you ever need a place to stay, I've got a little tiny house you can come. I offer it to anybody that wants to come to Augusta, whether you're playing or whether you're just going. You can come and stay. Not a big deal.
All right. I will let you know. That would be awesome.
Yep. All right. Who would be in your dream foursome?
Good question. Are we talking just golfers here? It can be anybody.
Anybody.
Right. Well, we got to go. I'll just do golfers. That'll be easier. Let's go Tiger, Ernie, and God, it's getting tough. Hogan.
That's good.
That'd be my group.
All right. What is the best golf stat that no one is paying attention to?
I got it. It's one that we're going to be kind of sharing. We're developing it right now, but it's basically an in-play metric for off the tee, or the percentage of your drives that leave a clear second shot to the hole or layup. So take away penalties, take away recovery shots. If you've got a clear shot on that next shot, that to me is one of the most important stats that you could possibly track. And because the definition is kind of weird there, not a lot of people do. So we're coming out with exactly how we want to calculate it, and we'll share that with users.
Nice.
Very important.
All right. What is the most random golf stat that you found that someone tracks?
Interesting. Well, I always think the correlation of beers consumed and strokes over par is an interesting one that I've seen a few people track over time. Yeah, that one's fun. I don't know. Maybe we'll see if we can get that at strokes lost drinking or strokes gained drinking.
Can you add that into the Arccos system where you're like, I pulled out my 9-iron and a Fireball Mini?
Yeah, exactly. I do think like it wouldn't be a bad idea to be able to track how drinking affects people's rounds. Can go either way.
That's right.
All right, this one might be tough because you were already an Arccos user, but how much has your game improved since working at Arccos?
Since working at Arccos, probably a stroke or two. I think, most of the improvement was in the like 3.5 years leading up to that.
Like you said, good golfers don't have as much they can improve on.
Well, it's, and it's also a challenge now of just like getting out there as much as I would like. In order to kind of maintain a good game, you really need to spend a lot of time on the course, and that's tough. But hoping that within this next year, I get, 50, 60 rounds, it should be really cool.
Well, now that you got a 1-year-old, get you a toddler golf bag from Charlie Golf Co.
Charlie Golf.
I have one.
And,
I have, and
nice.
I got the golf clubs. Although what I'm discovering is he may be a lefty, and I bought him right-handed clubs. So I don't know. Could be one of those things that's fine. Yeah, exactly. He develops a right-handed swing, but he's left-hand dominant. That seems to work out well for some people.
All right. What is your favorite snack on the golf course?
That's easy. That's the what are they? The PB&J
Crustables.
Uncrustables. There we go.
Uncrustables. Yeah.
I'm embarrassed that I forgot the name of them, but yeah, those are awesome.
I don't think I've ever had one on a golf course. We have to bring
really?
it with us the next time we play.
It's the perfect golf snack.
Everyone talks about it.
So you freeze them. And then you like throw them in your cooler or whatever. And, by the time you have them in the round, like it's got that nice, it can still be cold, maybe a little bit frozen. And yeah, it's the best. Quick energy. Good to go.
All right. This is one of my favorite questions. What's your favorite golf course logo?
Let's see. That's tough. I'd have to look at like my ball marker collection. Hold on. Am I allowed to Google here?
Sure.
Let me see if this is the one that I remember. Oh, that's tough. Okay. No, that was not the one that I wanted. All right. Who is what's the Pinehurst one? Pinehurst has
The Putter Boy?
Yes, there we go. All right. Yeah, they've got it. But that's the most iconic one, I guess. Yeah. So I'll go with that. It's not something I've paid a lot of attention to, so I will going forward.
Perfect.
All right. Finally, without revealing state secrets, what's next for Arccos Golf?
So yeah, really good question. I think a lot of what we've done up until this point and what we're continuing to improve is with the shot tracking and the kind of analysis of your data, or making it easy for you to understand your game that way. Where I don't think we've leaned into as much as I'm hoping that we will is how to put that into action. So to take from your statistics and to not just think of them as kind of like trivia, but here are the clear next steps on what you can do to improve your game that are very targeted and personalized to what we see within your data. You know, the nice thing about that too is we've got a very large user base, and in a way you can kind of A/B test some of those hypotheses around, like, well, we're going to recommend this intervention to this group of golfers and this one to this other, and then we're going to track how they do going forward. Those are the kinds of things that I think, like, as the core functionality is solved and we get really good at detecting your shots and making that a seamless experience, which has been like our primary focus since I've been at the company. But what is the next step in terms that you can take as a golfer? And then how do we also track that so that we can improve our recommendations for other people? So, yeah, I think that there's a ton of things that we're looking at and exploring in that area. And hopefully for users of the app, you'll start to see more of that in 2025.
Nice.
It's exciting stuff. Well, Hutch, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody needs to go follow Hutch at Hutch_golf on X. You can also follow Arccos at Arccos Golf. That's ARCCOS Golf. But Hutch, thanks for joining us, man, on the Whole Story Podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, guys. Really enjoy your work, and yeah, we'll continue to follow your games, and yeah, well, let's stay in touch.